You check your phone after an argument. The texts are right there. He said he'd be home at 6. He said you could take the car. He promised you a gift. Yet when you bring it up, he looks at you like you've lost your mind. I never said that. You're remembering wrong again. And for a split second, you wonder if he's right. That flicker of doubt. That's where it begins. Maybe you've been told you're too sensitive. Maybe you've heard you're overreacting, being dramatic, making things up. Maybe someone convinced you that your memory is faulty, your emotions are unreliable, and your perceptions can't be trusted. Perhaps they repeat the same exact things you say, in different words, and call it their idea. You're not alone in this experience. What you're encountering has a name, a structure, and a disturbing logic. This video explores why women are systematically taught to doubt themselves, how manipulators exploit that training, and what you can do to reclaim your personal authority. We'll examine the cultural conditioning that sets women up for gaslighting, the tactics abusers use to weaponize gender stereotypes, and the concrete steps you can take to break free. Stick with me until the practical section, where I'll share a solution to start rebuilding trust in your own perceptions. Now, let's look at how this pattern gets planted in the first place. From your earliest memories, you absorbed a quiet hierarchy. The word man meant person. The word woman meant something else, something marked, something secondary. In stories at school, in your own family, you learned that male judgment defines what counts as reasonable, attractive, true. When someone later tells you you're overreacting, they're not just disagreeing. They're invoking a rule you've already internalized. His version is neutral fact. Yours is emotional craziness. Simone de Beauvoir mapped this terrain decades ago. She showed how women are trained to see themselves through male eyes, to measure their worth by their relationship to men. That training doesn't feel like oppression when you're small. It feels like truth. You learn to be nice, to avoid conflict, to make others comfortable. You learn that good girls don't complain, don't make waves, don't trust their anger. Culture rewards this compliance with promises of safety and belonging, but the trade is steep. You give up your own compass. This dispersion weakens you in a specific way. Without a strong sense of we among women, you look to nearby authorities for validation. In intimate relationships, that habit becomes dangerous. When he's upset, your first thought is, what did I do wrong? Not, is his reaction fair? You police yourself before anyone else can. Accommodation becomes reflex. Inquiry becomes rude. The result is a psychological setup. Choosing to keep things smooth feels safer than risking his anger or withdrawal. Silence becomes confused with virtue. You learn to manage his feelings instead of protecting your boundaries. The manipulator doesn't create this pattern. He just recognizes it and uses it. He rebrands your obedience as maturity and your resistance as immaturity. The trap was already built. He just knows where the doors are. This conditioning creates perfect soil for gaslighting. You've spent years learning that your perceptions are suspect, that accommodating others is love, that speaking up is selfish. When someone exploits that training, you don't see manipulation right away. You see an opportunity to be better, to finally get it right. And that's exactly what keeps you stuck. The next concept reveals how manipulators turn femininity itself into a weapon against you. Centuries of cultural messaging link femininity with emotion, and emotion with unreliability. Men are rational. Women are hysterical. Men think. Women feel. These aren't just old stereotypes gathering dust. They're active cultural scripts that manipulators use as leverage. When you name what happened, when you point to evidence, when you say, "This hurt me," the abuser doesn't argue facts. He doesn't need to. He just calls you crazy. Paige Sweet's research on the sociology of gaslighting reveals the mechanics. Gaslighters construct what she calls surreality. They contradict your memory, minimize threats, reframe cruelty as jokes or concern. They pair these narratives with small sabotages, moving your keys, selectively forgetting plans, changing stories. Then they point to your confusion as proof you're unstable. Each denial nudges you to rely on his explanations over your senses. The goal isn't to win an argument. The goal is to make you dependent on their version of reality. The cultural script does most of the work. When he says, "You're too sensitive," those words land differently on you than they would on a man. They carry the weight of every message you've ever received about female emotionality. They suggest your feelings are evidence of weakness, not data about harm. Even professionals absorb this bias. Therapists mistake coercive control for mutual conflict. Police dismiss abuse without visible injuries. Courts watch a calm, composed man face an anxious, tearful woman and assume he's the reasonable one. Manipulators also weaponize sexuality. They call you frigid or promiscuous, depending on what controls you. They accuse you of affairs to justify surveillance. Then they point to your resulting exhaustion and fear as proof you're mentally unfit. Sexual double binds create permanent grounds to discredit you. Control of your body becomes control of your credibility. The rhetoric follows a pattern. "You made me do this," exploits your socialized reflex to self-correct. If you were calmer, prettier, quieter, none of this would happen. That claim works because you've spent your life learning to manage other people's emotions. You try harder, you adjust more, and every adjustment becomes evidence that you're the problem. The abuser recruits allies to echo his labels. Friends start repeating, "She's unstable." Family suggests you're overreacting. Even your own mind starts to believe it. Once the social proof accumulates, doubt becomes automatic. Breaking the trap requires a mental shift. Stop asking, "Why does he feel this way?" Start asking, "What rules is he enforcing on me?" Track patterns, not speeches. Watch outcomes, not apologies. When he says you're crazy for being upset, notice he's forbidden you from being upset. That's not care, that's control. With this understanding, we can now look at how these dynamics scale into full entrapment. You don't stay because you're weak. You stay because leaving is structurally, practically, financially, and socially punished. Abusers don't just hurt you. They engineer dependence. They isolate you from friends. They demand secrecy that cuts off reality checks from the outside world. By the time you think about leaving, they've already made leaving look impossible. Judith Herman's work on trauma shows us that entrapment follows design, not accident. The target learns to scan for danger, appease to survive, and blame herself for the abuse. These are survival skills. They kept you safer in the moment. The problem is, they also keep you stuck. When the outside world echoes his story, when your family says, "He seems so nice," when mutual friends suggest you're both at fault, escape starts to feel like social exile. Understanding this pattern is the first step. Shame is the glue. Once you see that difficulty leaving is the rule, not the exception, you can start to dismantle it. Safety comes first, not storytelling, not processing, not justice. Safety means stabilizing sleep, reclaiming medical decisions, and building concrete protection plans. Sometimes that requires leaving. Sometimes it means carefully chosen boundaries while you prepare to leave. Other times it could mean bringing in legal measures. The measure of progress isn't how much you've shared. The measure is how much control you've taken back over your daily life. For women facing added vulnerabilities, the trap tightens further. Immigration status becomes a threat. I'll have you deported. Race becomes a weapon. No one will believe you. Motherhood becomes leverage. I'll take the kids. Disability becomes ammunition. You can't survive without me. These aren't random cruelties. They're calculated plays on systems that already fail marginalized women. Naming these patterns converts helplessness into strategy. You can document. You can build community with people who understand your specific terrain. Recovery looks ordinary on the outside. Scheduling your own appointments, budgeting money you control, practicing the word no in low-stakes conversations, choosing relationships that honor your boundaries. These small acts reverse years of training to defer and appease. As daily competence grows, the pull to return to old dynamics weakens. Autonomy rebuilds in repeatable moves, not grand gestures. Throughout all of this, one truth holds. You are the expert on your own experiences. You're the author of your own pace. The people helping you aren't there to push, to judge, or to decide for you. They're there to validate what you already know and to stand with you while you trust it. With alliance and structure, self-trust returns. Isolation breaks. The world becomes livable on your terms again. So how do you start reclaiming your personal authority when years of conditioning have taught you to doubt yourself? The trust method offers 3 concrete steps you can begin today, each building on the last, to restore your confidence in your own perceptions. Step 1. Track your truth. Before discussing difficult interactions with anyone, document what happened in real time. Write down the facts, the timeline, how you felt immediately after. Be specific. He said he'd be home at 6. He arrived at 9. When I mentioned it, he said, I never told him 6. This creates an external record your mind can return to when doubt creeps in. Keep this documentation private and safe. The goal is to build trust in yourself, regardless of external forces. Step 2. Reach for connection. Share your documented experiences with someone who validates your reality. Choose carefully. Pick a friend or family member who listens without minimizing, who doesn't rush to defend him or explain his behavior. Read your written account aloud. Let yourself hear your own voice stating facts. Connection breaks the isolation that gaslighting requires. Step 3. Strengthen your standards. Based on what you've learned about yourself through tracking and connecting, set one small boundary. Choose one behavior you will no longer tolerate. State it clearly. I won't continue conversations where I'm called names. I won't accept last-minute cancellations without explanation. Start small. Each time you hold a boundary, you prove to yourself that your perceptions are valid and your needs are worth protecting. For those of you in dangerous situations, consider seeking out help from support channels such as the National Domestic Violence Hotline. You didn't create the conditioning that made you doubt yourself. However, you still have the power to choose differently now. With these steps, you're not just surviving. You're authoring a new story where your voice holds weight and your reality holds ground. The solution is both personal and collective. You're not broken for having absorbed these messages. You're human. The scripts that taught you to doubt yourself were written long before you were born, refined over centuries, and delivered to you as truth. Seeing them for what they are, patterns designed to keep power where it already lives, gives you something others never wanted you to have. A choice. We're all in this together. Your past may have been full of doubt, fear, and loneliness, but now you get to be the author of a new future. Thank you for joining me on this exploration into the psychology of manipulation and female psychology. If this resonated, please share your reflections in the comments below and subscribe for more journeys into the depths of practical psychology, philosophy, and personal development. Until next time,